Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. Afflicted with an unrecognized liver ailment at age 13, Peggy fights for her life as her illness transforms her physically and psychologically. Her parents, uncertain whether their daughter will live or die, immerse her in life and positive energy. Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness by Garet Spiese, also known as Peggy, is her story, the story of her survival, despite the odds. Although her dreams seem dashed, she battles obstacles, physical and emotional, and learns the value of gratitude in all things. As she copes with her declining health, she succeeds in finding a life partner, acting and writing in the world of theater, and then receives a second chance at life through the liver transplant. Garet Spiese, Peggy, is a liver transplant recipient, a flower gardener, bird watcher, lover of all things nature. She worked on support staff for 13 years in Pennsylvania's Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Education Project. She's acted in Lancaster area theaters and enjoyed a period of storytelling as well. Married to her musician-actor husband for 45 years, the couple lives with their 3 adopted cats in the beautiful western Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, overlooking the mighty Susquehanna River. And Peggy, Garet Spiese, author of Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness, is our guest on This Week in America. Garet, welcome to the program. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
What an inspiring story you share in your book, Life is But a Dream. What was the inspiration for writing this book? What motivated you to tell your story to help other people?
Well, as you mentioned, I became ill very early in my life at age 13. And from that time in February 1963 through the present, I have seen doctors over and over again, experienced various medical examinations and procedures. And this is all due to liver problems that were diagnosed early on, and then associated issues that came after that. And my parents, my family, and faith community have all encouraged me to find the positive part of it through all of it. And apparently I've been successful in doing that and maintaining a hopeful attitude. And so throughout these experiences, my prognosis was very limited, a limited amount of time with inevitable death, which I apparently defied.
Yes.
I've now celebrated my 72nd birthday.
Fantastic.
But as various doctors saw me and heard my story, each of them told me, why, you should write a book. And so journaling has been my salvation through all of this and in my darkest hours. So essentially the book was already started. And then finally, when I was placed on the UNO's United Network for Organ Sharing Transplant list in 1998, I knew that time was running out and that if I wanted to write this book, I had to do it. So I organized my journal writing and enhanced that a bit and got contacted. Actually, iUniverse was the first publishing company I contacted, and I wrote my story and they helped me get it published. And then I decided with COVID that I wanted to do a republication and include a little bit addressing that as well, since people have to deal with long-term COVID and other issues as well.
Well, the book is helping so many people. The book written by Garet Spiese, that's G-A-R-E-T, Spiese, S-P-I-E-S-E. Book is Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness. Book available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold, stratton-press.com, the publisher. Book available there as well. Garet Spiese, also known as Peggy, so I'll go back and forth talking about Peggy and Garet as we're having our conversation. Who should read the book? When you sat down to put together Life is But a Dream, did you have a particular target audience in mind? And I say that because this is really powerful for people who are suffering like you and family members and friends as well.
Yes, family and friends are so important through this whole journey. Without a good support system, I don't know how I would have gotten through these years. And I really feel as if their love and positivity holding me up is a lot to do with why I have survived. So, yes, friends and family of those who are suffering from illness, those who have a chronic illness, those who are going to face a procedure like a knee replacement, or who may have recently been diagnosed with cancer. These are all very frightening and challenging things. And there are other challenges we face in life also, the possibility of losing a job, having to move from one home to another. All of these things present us with fears and uncertainty. And I have just learned that in each of these challenges, if we go through them with some faith and hope, there is something to be learned from them. And you can come out on the other side and say, oh, I'm so glad I had to go through that because I've grown this much. I've learned this from it. I've learned perhaps not to anticipate something, but to just live through it as it comes. I'm just hoping that my story is an encouragement to other people who may be faced with any kind of challenge.
Well, it certainly is. In reading the reviews, it's a job well done because people are really motivated by your honesty, what you went through, how you came out of it, the attitude that you've had, your family had. It's such a powerful book. The title is Life is But a Dream. Tell me about coming up with the title. That sort of captures the essence of your story. How did you come up with Life is But a Dream?
Well, of course, as a child, I was always read to by my parents, and life is but a dream. Everyone knows that little rhyme, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. But as I've experienced these medical problems, issues, each day as I've attempted to get up and try to live a normal life, and when I lay my head on the pillow at night, it seems as if I've lived another dream. And now looking back on what was indicated that I would die before I was out of the hospital at age 13. And then I had multiple experiences of being very close to death as I got sick throughout my life. And yet somehow I always pulled through. And looking back on each of those experiences, they too seem like dreams. So as I wrote the book, I decided also to include dreams in the text as well, sometimes using them as precursors, perhaps, to what was on the horizon for me, or to reflect what I was experiencing at any given time in the sequence of things. So I feel like in the end that my life has been a mixture of good dreams and of nightmares. But in the end, yeah, it all seems pretty much like a dream to me.
Well, it's an appropriate title. Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness by Garet Spiese. Peggy, our guest on the program. You're an excellent writer, and I realize you mentioned this came from journaling. Have you published any other book?
Well, my uncle was a medic in World War II, and I had the privilege of interviewing him in his last years. He was still very lucid, and I did put together a piece which I've called Faith Under Fire. It has not been formally published, but I'm hoping to submit that to the Veterans History Project initially, and perhaps have it published too. And I have other works that I've been working on, but I've really never published any of them. So that's about the size of that.
Well,
and I'm sorry, as we're talking here, I just want to tell people that the reason I'm called Garet and Peggy is that I was named Margaret after my paternal aunt when I was born. And since she was in the household and I was in the household a lot at the same time, to distinguish us, they would call me Peggy and she was Margaret. And then when I got into the theater, my brother, who was my director, suggested that I contract Margaret into Garet. That's the last part of Margaret.
Yes.
And so it seems as if my theater experience has been on the west side or the east side of the Susquehanna River, and my growing up experiences were on the west side of the Susquehanna. So I'm Garet and I am Peggy.
And you answer to both.
Don't call me late for dinner, as they say.
Yes. So Garet Spiese, and when you hear us talk about Peggy, that's Garet Spiese, the author of the book Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness. What's next for you? You mentioned maybe you're working on another book. What's in store for you? You've got so much going on in your life.
Well, I've just started to work on a website. I don't have it up and running at this point, but it will be under my name, Garet Spiese. And in it, I would like to be able to tell various stories. The one about my uncle. I've had multiple cats in my life and lots of fun stories about them. And that includes one who just recently passed away, a calico, who, before she was even a year old, took an incredible journey for a whole month. And she did come back and then lived with us for 19 years. So
that's an amazing story.
I have lots of fun stories to tell too.
Well, we'll be looking forward to those and hopefully have a chance to talk about those as well. And I know besides reaching people with your book, Life is But a Dream, I mentioned the theater background and acting and that. The storytelling, do you like to speak to groups? Do you have opportunities to speak to various groups in person about your story?
I have had the opportunity and privilege to speak to many students when I was working with the Lancaster Lebanon Intermediate Unit 13, who was coordinating Pennsylvania's Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Education Project. I was able to share my story of transplant with those students. And that was so important to me because my organ donor was a 17-year-old girl from Frederick, Maryland, who I never met, but who made the decision that she wanted to indicate that she was an organ donor on her driver's license. And of course, every 16-year-old in Pennsylvania who wants to get a driver's license is asked that question, whether or not they wish to be an organ donor. So I love to help people understand organ donation a little better, see me. I would not be alive today without the generous gift from this 17-year-old girl who tragically lost her life, but decided she wanted to be an organ donor.
And that's
And
another.
also, I've had the opportunity to talk to some faith groups, church groups, who every November, I believe it is, in Pennsylvania, we celebrate organ donation and donors, and also in April. And so there's opportunity to invite guest speakers like myself to share their experience of organ donation at that time.
That's
Also, there are various support groups, organ donation support groups, and other medical groups who may benefit from the sharing of
yes.
my story.
And that's another important element of the story is and you mentioned most of us at one point or another in our lives ask if we would like to be an organ donor. Just remember Garet, what she went through, and alive today because of an organ donor. Garet Spiese, our guest. The book is Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness. Time going by so quickly here. A few minutes left. I want to talk about other interests. I touched on them briefly. You're certainly got a well-rounded life going on now, don't you? It seems like you're busy all the time with something.
Yes, I actually have a part-time job with the church as a secretary. I love to garden. So in the summertime, I'm busy in the vegetable and flower garden. Um, and we live surrounded by woods, so we're often visited by deer and other wildlife. And also, I love to feed the birds. So those are things I enjoy doing very much.
You know, it sounds like a beautiful setting where you live, and a message again to everybody: get outdoors and enjoy what's there. The gardening, the wildlife, all the plants that you see outdoors. A couple minutes left. You have this in your book, but could you recommend something that people can do in coping with illness? Just a couple of maybe tips that you went through to get through that period, because as you said several times, you didn't know whether you were going to live or not during this period. How can people cope with illness, get through it with a positive attitude?
Well, it is important to listen to your doctor, although my doctors initially told my parents that I wasn't going to make it out of the hospital. So it's also important to listen to your own body.
Yes.
And do what you can, like going out into nature if you're able to do that. Do things that you love, that make you happy. Having a positive attitude is absolutely so important, but you have to honor your own needs too. You have to rest when you need to and get good nutrition and lots of water. I am privileged to have a husband who loves to do research about whatever's wrong with me or us as we're both getting older. And so if you can do research about what's happening to your body and what's not functioning well, and find out what any little thing that you can do to put into the mix too, to help improve yourself. And also, I think the main thing for me has been, or I should say a concise thing, is take care of the illness, but focus on living. Focus on the next breath you're going to take and be grateful for that. I start each day by putting my feet on the floor and saying, thank you for this day. Thank you for the air I breathe. Thank you for the gift of life.
It's a good lesson.
I think that gratitude is Very, very important.
A good lesson for all of us that Garet has gone through. Garet Spiese, our guest on the program. A minute or so left here. How are you doing now? How is your health now? You look great. You sound great. You're very active in the community, in the church. How are you doing today?
I continue to deal with illness. My calendar is booked with doctor appointments. I have atrial fibrillation, diabetes, osteoporosis. I have a chronic venous stasis ulcer in my lower right leg that requires monthly visits to the wound clinic. But my husband, as I said, is my major support, and he helps me know what vitamins to take, how important activity is, and massage, meditation, all of these things can assist in healing and maintaining a degree of health. So, like I said, I try to take care of the illnesses, but concentrate on living.
Well, it's working because, like I say, you're very active and you look and you sound great. And I really appreciate you being on the program, sharing the story. Life is but a dream. Is there any way readers can get in contact with you? I'll give them in a second where they can buy the book, which is basically everywhere. But if they want to reach out to you, is there a way they can do that?
Well, if you would like to email me, if you have any questions, if you have concerns, if you need to cry on somebody's shoulder, you can email me at garetsp@gmail.com. And like I said, I'm hoping soon to have a website, www.garetspiesetellmeastory.com.
Very simple to remember. The email is basically what garetsp@gmail.com. Simple to remember. And Garet Spiese, Tell Me a Story, will be the website. And we'll have all that available as well, so you can reach out to Garet. It's been a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you for taking the time to talk about your life, your work, and the work you are doing to help other people through dealing with illnesses. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Oh, thank you so very much, Rick.
It has been a pleasure having Garet Spiese on the program. If you're Googling, that's Garet. Spiese is Spiese. The book is Life is But a Dream, a memoir of living with illness. Book available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, usual places, as well as stratton-press.com. And all this on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.